Hello, this is Ben McGahee with McGahee Mathematics, and on this video topic we're going to talk about the slope of a line, one of the very important characteristics of any linear equation as far as graphing lines goes. As you can see, the slope of a line, first thing we're going to do is define what that is. The slope of a line can be defined as a ratio of a rise over run. So a ratio is like a division problem, a fraction, numerator, denominator. So the rise, we can think of that as like how the y values are changing. So it's the triangle y, which is actually pronounced delta y, because delta is a Greek symbol that means change. And then we divide that by the change in the x values. So that would be delta x. So we want to know how the y values are changing with respect to how the x values are changing. So it's looking at that ratio, rise over run. So we have four different types of slopes here. And let's look at the first type. We're going to call this what's called positive slope. And if we take any 2 points on the line, and we can see how the y values are changing. You can see they're increasing. So our delta y is positive. And then delta x, if you're moving to the right, the run, is also positive. So you can see that the overall slope is positive. So we'll say that's greater than 0 for positive. Now, for the second type of slope we have for line, this is called negative slope. And the negative slope, you can see that the y values, the rise is decreasing. It's going down. So delta y will be negative. And then the run is the same as the last. It's positive. The x values are increasing. So we know that a negative divided by positive has to be negative. So that's why it's negative slope. So negative. Now, this line, the third type of slope, this is a horizontal line. So you can see that the height, there is really no height that's changing with the line. The only thing that's changing is delta x. So if we were going left to right, you could say that's positive. And so delta y, since there's no change in the y values, since it's horizontal, we say that's 0. So we know that 0 divided by any other number that's not 0 has to be 0. So that's why it's called 0 slope. And then last but not least is our fourth type of slope. It's called what's called undefined slope. And let's see why that is. Here, unlike a horizontal line, you can see that the y values are changing, right? If you go from this point to that point, the y values are increasing. So you see delta y is positive. That changes positive as they're increasing. But x, there is no change going left or right. So our delta x is 0. And if you notice with slope, the delta y or delta x, if you have 0 in the denominator, you know that that's undefined. So, and we can't divide by 0 with fractions. So that's why it's called an undefined slope. Okay, so basically we're going to write down the slope formula for a line. We use the letter M. And the reason that is because there's like a French word, and that's like stands for mountain. So we use, like if we're going up a mountain or down the mountain that way, then we can, it's just convenient to use the letter M. So the way we have to define the slope is if we have any 2 points on the line, x1, comma y1, the coordinates for the first point, and x2, y2, the coordinates for the second point, then we can define the slope as y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So notice that earlier when we had the rise over run, with the rise that is a change in the y values, so that you can see that this is the change in the y values, the difference of y2 minus y1, difference in those y values divided by x2 minus x1, and that's the run, the delta x that goes on the bottom. So the y values go on top, x values go on the bottom. And another thing to notice here that's important is the subscripts. Notice how the y2 and the x2 are lined up together, and then you have y1 and x1 lined up together. So make sure that the subscripts are consistent, that they line up. You can also do it in the other order. You could also do the y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. So, you can observe that the subscripts, they're still lined up. So the only thing that wouldn't work is if you had, y2 minus y1 over x1 minus x2. So if this was a 1 here, and that's x2, you can see that these subscripts don't line up, so you would get the incorrect slope if you were to use that formula. And that's just an example. Okay, so let's do an example of calculating the slope of a line. Let's say we have 2 points. We have 2 and let's say -1, and then our other point would be -3 and 4. So we want to find the slope of the line. Just using these 2 points. So the way we're going to do that is we need to label our values. We have x1 is 2, y1 -1, x2 -3, and y2 is 4. So we use our formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is 4, and then minus y1 -1 all over x2 -3 minus x1, which is 2. So that's going to equal, you have 4 minus -1. That's the same thing as 4 plus 1, because the opposite of negative is positive. So it's like adding 4 plus 1 to get 5 over -3 minus -2. That's also -5. Remember, when you add 2 negatives, you get a negative value, and it's like adding the 2 numbers. 3 plus 2 is 5. So we have 5 over -5, but that reduces to 5 over 5 is 1, but if we have a negative, that's going to be -1. So our slope is -1. So that would be our answer for the slope, given these 2 points on the line. Another quick example we can do is if we have, let's say, 5, 7, and let's say -6 and 7. So we can calculate the slope. So we have our x1, y1, x2, y2. And then we just plug them into the formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we have 7, y2 minus that 7's y1 over x2 is -6 minus x1 is 5. So that equals 7 minus 7 is 0 over -6 minus 5 is -11. And 0 divided by -11 is 0. So we have a 0 slope for this line, the 2 points. So again, this has been McGahee Mathematics and the slope of a line, and learn how to use that formula. Do stay tuned for next video where we're going to talk about slope-intercept formula of a line, where we have the slope and the y-intercept, y equals mx plus b. We're going to learn how to find an equation of a line, just given a slope and maybe a point, and as well as graphing using the slope-intercept form line. So stay tuned for that.